Hello and welcome to a little video on annotated solution. So we will be using annotated solutions in our daily practice work. We will also be using it in the end of spiral work, and we will be using it possibly in our student conferences. So annotated solutions, is a way to demonstrate your thinking. And this is really important because if we have to describe what we're doing and why, it makes it a lot easier to catch errors. It also lets me see your thinking and gives me a point or a place to talk about if there are some misconceptions, or a place for me to check off if you are really understanding a concept. It's also a good place to deepen your understanding. So rather than just guess or be unsure if you did the solution right, if you have to explain your thinking, you are more likely to have a solid foundation or develop a solid foundation or even develop a confidence because you can see that you did the right thing as you were working through the problem. Okay, so you can do your annotated solutions on paper and take a picture or scan. You can type up solutions, although that can get pretty yucky, so I wouldn't suggest that. But if you like to, go right ahead. I'm using a program called Paint because I have a tablet and a digital pen. And then for me, I'm using a program called Screencast-O-Matic so that I can take a video as I'm working through. Okay, so I did a little example for you in the refresh. So each of you have a different topic, but for me, my exemplar is with operation of negative numbers. And with this, the big concept is that negative means the opposite of positive. So what you would do with a positive number, you're going to do the opposite with a negative number. So rather than that old method where we need to memorize what to do with the signs, don't worry about that. We're looking at what the actual understanding of this is. So if I were doing addition and normally I would move up in the numbers, if it's negative, I'm going to do the opposite and move down. Okay, so let's have a look at our first example here. So we want to make sure that we are including the question number plus the actual question. Please don't make me guess. It makes it really difficult if I have to search around for what you're doing. Okay, so we have this question, 9 plus negative 3. And the thinking is just something like this. If 3 were positive, 9 plus 3 would be 12, right? If it were positive, we would know exactly what to do with it right away. But 3 is negative. So instead of this 9 plus 3, it's going to turn into 9 minus 3 and give me a 6. And if we need a little bit more visual for that, in my examples I did a number line. And I'm using some color here so you can see the difference. So if it were positive, I'd start at 9, and I would go over 1, 2, 3, and my answer would be 12. But we're not working with a positive 3, we're working with a negative 3. So I start at 9, and I'm going to go the opposite direction of 1, 2, 3, and that gives me the 6. So that's a fairly full annotated solution. You're getting the benefit of my voice, so you are welcome to include some audio with your solutions if you like, but it is not necessary. Something like this would be full. Okay, let's look at, a second solution. So B, -5 minus a -6 plus 6 minus 7. So again, we want to make sure we're including the solution, or the question. So let's just deal with this first part here. So if 6 were positive, I would do -5 subtract 6. So I'm getting smaller. That's a -11. And we'll see that visually in a moment with the number line. But 6 is negative. So instead, that subtract is going to become a positive, or an add. So if I owe someone $5 and I pay them 6, I'm up 1. Okay. So let's have a look on that number line. Just to get to that point, we'll finish the rest of the problem after. Going to need a big number line because we're moving all over the place. So if this is 0, -1, -2, 3. I'm one of those people that need to focus as I'm writing, or I start writing what I am saying. We need to see this -11 all the way down here. Alright, so let's go back to that color. I would start at -5, and if it was positive, subtracting is going in this direction, so I would go back 6, and that would give me the -11. But again, 6 is a negative, so here I'm going to start at -5, and instead of going back with subtraction, I'm going to go the opposite, 6, to get that 1. So that's where the 1 comes from. And then I'm just going to pull the rest of this one down here to finish the problem. So now that I'm at 1, let's look at the 1 plus 6. Fairly simple. I start at 1 and I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that gives me the 7. So here's my 7. Then I'm going to pull down my -7. So when I can do that in another color, there's my orange. I'm going to go -7, which is back 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And my final answer is a 0. So that's a way to do an annotated solution. I've used color, I've used a visual number line, I've used some words here to describe. We just want to be able to do it in a way that works for you. You don't have to worry about copying what I'm doing, just demonstrating your thinking. Okay, so let's get into one problem before we run out of time here. Okay, 15 divided by -3. So one way, another learning strategy is, where's my question here? Oh, I've lost it. Oh, too far. There we go. All right. So another learning strategy is to use an anchor chart or an example to help you solve problems. So I'm going to my little anchor chart that I created for you in your example, and I go down to divide. So essentially divide is the same. So if the number were positive, we would take the 2 and divide them and get a solution. We're done. But because the number is negative, we need to get the opposite of that answer, because the negative influences the opposite. So here we are. Let's do this again. If 3 were positive, we would take 15, divide by 3, and get an answer of positive 5. But 3 is negative. Okay, which is the opposite of positive. So we need, the opposite of positive 5, which is negative 5. And that accounts for this negative right here. So now we are ending up with, instead of a positive 5, we have a negative 5 as a solution. Okay, let's have a look at another one. D. I like this one because there are multiple negatives and we don't want to get too confusing here. Okay, if we have negative 6 times negative 2, it's very similar to the divide, but we're looking at this one here over on the right. So if we had two positive numbers, we would take those two numbers and divide and get a solution. Okay, but we have one negative number which changes the answer once, and then we have a second negative number which changes the answer again. So we're going to have a little look at what that does with our example. Okay, so let's just do it. If 6 and 2 were positive, we would do 6 times 2 and our answer would be 12. Okay, positive 12. But 6 is negative, so the opposite of 12 is a negative 12. So that's taking into account that one. But we also have a negative 2. But 2 is also negative, so we need another opposite. So the opposite of this negative 12 is now a 12. So our answer ends up being positive 12. So the concept here is do the work with the numbers, and then with multiply and divide we can do the negative part afterwards. All right, last solution. I think I have another screen open here. Okay, E says 8 times negative 3 divided by a negative 6 times by a negative 2. So we are going to deal with just the first part of this problem because we like to break them down. So if we had 8 times 3, that would give us a 24. But that 3 is negative. So we need the opposite of 24, which is negative 24. So that part would now become negative 24. And then we would just bring down the rest of this problem. So divide by negative 6 times by a negative 2. And then, lovely thing about colors, I can move on to the next one. So this piece right here. If we had 24 divided by 6, our answer would just be a 4. But here's that double negative. Okay. But we have negative 24, so the opposite of that one would be a negative 4 in our solution here. But we also have a negative 6, so the opposite now of negative 4 will be a positive 4. So we have the two negatives, so it flips from a positive to a negative and then back to a positive. So this gives us an answer of 4. And then once again, we are just going to bring down what we are missing, which is times by a negative 2. And we would do, let's just pick another color. Oh, I did that one, this one here. 4 times 2 equals 8, but negative 2. So opposite would be a negative 8. So our final answer is negative 8. And that is a couple examples of how to do some annotated solutions. Let me know if you have any questions and I can help you out. Thanks.